"Take the cloth off," she begged. The rancher did it and stood in horror. The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the rolling hills of Texas, casting long golden shadows across the ranch. Samuel, a man in his late 40s, moved steadily along the familiar dirt path that led through his property. His life had always been one of routine and solitude. The ranch was large, surrounded by thick woods and open fields, and for years it had been his entire world. Samuel didn't mind the quiet. He enjoyed the peaceful rhythm of caring for the land, tending to the cattle, and maintaining the fences. He had grown used to the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the lowing of cows in the distance, and the occasional hawk circling high above. It was a simple life, predictable and calm. On this particular afternoon, Samuel had decided to inspect the far edge of the property, near the line where the woods began. He often walked this path, checking fences and making sure the land was secure. But today, something was different. A faint sound reached his ears, carried by the soft breeze. At first, he thought it was the wind, perhaps rustling through the leaves in an unusual way. But then, he realized it was a sound that didn't belong to the ranch. A faint human sound, almost like a whisper or a quiet cry. Samuel paused, squinting toward the dense trees that marked the edge of his property. His instincts told him something was wrong. He was used to the noises of nature, birds, insects, animals moving through the underbrush, but this was different. It had a note of desperation, a small, trembling plea. He stepped cautiously off the path, pushing through the low branches and tall grass, listening closely. The sound grew clearer, more distinct. It was definitely a human voice, weak and trembling. As he approached a small clearing in the woods, Samuel's eyes fell on a young woman crouched beneath a large oak tree. She was thin, with tangled hair and a worn, tattered cloth wrapped around her. She looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes, and Samuel could see the exhaustion written all over her face. She was shivering, even though the afternoon sun still lingered above. Samuel's heart tightened at the sight. He had seen hard times on the ranch, droughts, injuries, animals lost to illness, but nothing like this. Are you okay?" he asked gently, keeping his voice low and calm so as not to startle her. The young woman shook her head slightly, her lips quivering.
"Please don't leave me. I need help," she whispered.
Her voice was soft but carried a weight that made Samuel pause. He noticed how thin and fragile she looked, how the cloth she wore barely covered her. It was clear she had been through something terrible, something that had left her alone and vulnerable in the woods. Samuel moved a few steps closer, careful to show he meant no harm. "You're safe here," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you. Come with me, and I'll make sure you're all right." The young woman hesitated, glancing around the clearing as if expecting someone or something to appear from the shadows. Her fear was palpable, but there was also a glimmer of hope in her eyes, the tiniest spark that maybe, just maybe, someone could help her. Slowly, she nodded, and Samuel extended his hand to her. She took it, her small fingers trembling as they met his, and together they walked back toward the main path. Samuel led her carefully through the woods, supporting her when she faltered and keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. He didn't ask too many questions at first. He knew that trust had to be earned, especially in someone who had clearly been through trauma. Silence settled between them, filled only by the sounds of the forest, the chirping of crickets, the distant call of a bird, the rustle of leaves beneath their feet. It was a quiet journey, but Samuel could feel the tension in her body, the way she flinched at sudden movements or sounds. When they reached the ranch house, Samuel opened the door and invited her inside. The house was modest but comfortable, with a warm kitchen and a small living area where a fire could be lit on cold nights. Samuel guided her to a chair near the window, offering her a blanket to wrap around herself. She accepted it hesitantly, pulling it close as if it could shield her from the memories she carried. "Sit here," Samuel said softly. "I'll get you something to eat. You must be starving." The young woman nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes were wide, darting around the room as if trying to memorize every detail in case she had to run again. Samuel could sense her fear, but he could also see the trust beginning to grow in small increments. She was letting him help her, and that was the first step towards safety. Samuel returned with a bowl of warm stew and a glass of water. He set them gently on the table in front of her. "Here," he said. "Eat something." "You need your strength." She looked at the food, then back at him, still unsure. Finally, hunger overcame her hesitation. She picked up the spoon with shaky hands and began to eat. Samuel watched quietly, giving her the space she needed. He knew that rushing her would only make her retreat further into herself. As she ate, Samuel couldn't help but notice the condition of her clothes. The cloth she wore was torn in several places, stained, and far too thin to provide real warmth. He realized that she had likely been wandering outdoors for days, exposed to the elements. The thought made his stomach tighten. No one should have to endure such hardship, especially alone. After a while, the young woman finished eating and looked up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was quieter now, but there was a note of relief in it. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't found me." "You're safe now," Samuel said firmly. "You don't have to worry about anything. You're not alone anymore." For a long moment she simply stared at him, as if trying to memorize every detail of his face, to remember the kindness she had been shown. Then, as the sun dipped lower in the sky, she let out a small sigh and leaned back in the chair, exhaustion overtaking her. Samuel gave her a reassuring smile, understanding that the day's journey had been overwhelming. He left her to rest for a while and went about his chores, keeping one ear tuned to the sounds from the living room. He could hear her breathing slowly, even from a distance, a sign that she was beginning to relax, if only slightly. For the first time since he had found her, Samuel felt a flicker of hope that she would be all right. As night fell over the ranch, the stars began to twinkle in the clear Texas sky. The wind whispered gently through the trees, carrying with it a sense of calm. Samuel knew that the road ahead would not be easy. He had no idea what she had endured or what she would need to recover fully, but he was determined to help her. He had spent his life caring for the land, for the animals, and now, for the first time, he was caring for another human being in desperate need. The young woman slept fitfully that night, the blanket wrapped tightly around her. Samuel sat quietly in the kitchen, sipping a cup of coffee, thinking about the strange twist of fate that had brought her to his ranch. He reflected on how life sometimes placed people in unexpected paths, and how small acts of kindness could change the course of someone's life entirely. By the time dawn broke, painting the ranch with hues of pink and gold, Samuel had made a silent promise to himself. He would do everything in his power to help this young woman, to ensure that she felt safe and to give her the chance to heal. He had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but he knew one thing with certainty. She was no longer alone, and the ranch would be her refuge until she was ready to face the world again. The morning sun poured through the windows of the small ranch house, casting a warm glow across the wooden floors. Samuel was already awake, moving quietly around the kitchen to prepare breakfast. The smell of sizzling eggs and freshly baked bread slowly filled the room. He glanced over at the young woman, Elena, who was sitting by the window wrapped in the blanket from the night before. Her eyes were still tired, heavy from the lack of sleep and the strain of the days she had endured. Elena shifted uncomfortably, tugging the blanket tighter around herself. She had eaten a little the previous evening, but her body still felt weak, and her hands shook slightly as she brought the warm mug of tea to her lips. Samuel noticed, but he said nothing. He had learned over the years that patience was often the best way to help someone heal. After setting breakfast on the table, Samuel sat across from her. "You don't have to eat if you're not ready," he said softly. "But you need your strength. You've been through a lot." Elena looked at him, her eyes wide and uncertain. For a moment she seemed frozen, as if unsure whether it was safe to trust anyone completely. Then she took a small bite of the bread, her movements slow and careful. Samuel watched quietly, understanding that this simple act was a big step for her. She had been forced to survive on her own for so long, and trust was not something she could give easily.
Once she had eaten a little, Samuel spoke again.
"Can you tell me your story?" he asked gently. "Only if you want to. I just need to know so I can help you properly."
Elena hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. Her hands twisted the edges of the blanket nervously. The weight of what she had endured seemed to press down on her, making it hard for her to speak. I was alone, she whispered finally. I had nowhere to go. People weren't kind.
"I had to leave. I didn't have a choice." Her voice shook, and she took a deep breath before continuing. "I didn't want to be here. I was just trying to survive."
Samuel nodded, keeping his expression calm and kind.
He did not interrupt, knowing that the silence between questions and answers could be just as important as the words themselves.
"It's okay," he said quietly.
"You're safe now. I'll make sure nothing happens to you."
Elena's eyes met his for a brief moment, and in them, Samuel could see both fear and relief. She was beginning to understand that someone cared. Someone would protect her, even if just for a little while. It was a small step, but it mattered more than words could express.
After breakfast, Samuel helped her to the bathroom to clean up. The young woman's clothes were in poor condition, and she needed care that she could not manage alone.
Elena hesitated when Samuel offered to help, her voice small and uncertain. I
don't want to bother you, she said. You're not bothering me, Samuel replied firmly.
I want to help. That's why you're here."
Slowly and with careful hands, Samuel helped her remove the tattered cloth she had been wearing. As he did, he realized just how much she had suffered. Her skin bore marks of fatigue, exhaustion, and hardship. There were patches where dirt had embedded itself, small scratches from the journey through the woods, and signs that she had been neglected for a long time. Samuel felt a wave of sadness wash over him. It was more than just physical exhaustion. It was a story written on her body, a record of everything she had endured alone. Elena flinched slightly as the cloth came off, and Samuel immediately offered her a clean, soft robe. "Here," he said gently.
"This will help you feel a little more comfortable."
The young woman hesitated but then accepted the robe. The soft fabric was a new sensation for her, something she hadn't felt in months. She ran her hands over it, surprised by how gentle it felt. Samuel could see a faint smile on her lips, a small sign that trust was beginning to take root.
Once she was cleaned up and clothed, Samuel led her to a quiet corner of the ranch where they could sit and talk. "I know it's hard," he said, "but I need to know about you so I can help. You don't have to tell me everything at once, just what you're comfortable with." Elena nodded, her eyes fixed on the ground.
Slowly, she began to speak, her voice still soft and hesitant. She told him about her journey, the days she had spent alone, and the fear that had never left her side. She spoke of how she had been forced to leave her home, the loneliness and the constant worry for her safety. Samuel listened carefully, never interrupting, letting her words flow at her own pace. As the hours passed, the tension in the room slowly began to lift. Elena's story was difficult to hear, but Samuel felt a growing sense of determination. He knew that providing food and shelter was only part of what she needed. She also needed someone to believe in her, someone to show her that the world could be kind. After their conversation, Samuel suggested a walk around the ranch. The young woman hesitated, worried about leaving the safety of the house, but Samuel offered his hand again. "I'll be with you the entire time," he assured her.
"You're not alone."
Slowly, she took his hand, and they stepped outside. The fresh air, the open fields, and the gentle sunlight seemed to soothe her.
For the first time in days, she allowed herself to look around and notice the beauty of the land. The cattle grazing peacefully, the birds singing in the trees, and the warm breeze on her face, all of it felt like a small gift, something she hadn't experienced in a long time.
They walked in silence for a while, the young woman's hand still in Samuel's. She began to ask questions about the ranch, about the animals, and about his life. Samuel answered each question patiently, enjoying the small moments of normalcy they were able to share. It was simple, quiet, and unremarkable. Yet for Elena, it was extraordinary. She felt safe, something she hadn't felt in months. As the sun climbed higher, Samuel guided her back to the house.
"You're doing well," he said gently. "Every step you take, you're getting stronger. Don't be afraid to let yourself heal."
Elena nodded, a small sense of hope beginning to blossom in her heart. She was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, she could have a future that wasn't filled with fear. Samuel's kindness, his patience, and his willingness to listen without judgment were beginning to help her believe in herself again. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Samuel brought out a stack of clean clothes he had prepared for her. The soft fabrics and fresh scents were foreign to her, but she accepted them with gratitude. For the first time in a long while, she felt cared for, respected, and seen as more than just someone in need. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying a sincerity that touched Samuel deeply.
"I don't know what I would have done without you." "You don't have to thank me," Samuel replied. "I'm glad you're here."
"You deserve to be safe and cared for." As night fell and the stars appeared in the clear Texas sky, Elena sat quietly by the fire, feeling a sense of comfort she hadn't known in a long time. Samuel watched her, silently promising himself that he would do everything he could to help her recover, to protect her, and to guide her toward a life filled with hope. Though the road ahead would be long, both of them knew that this was the beginning of a journey.
A journey of healing, trust, and newfound strength. For Elena, it was the first step toward reclaiming her life.
For Samuel, it was a reminder that even in his quiet, solitary world, he could make a profound difference in someone's life. And as the fire crackled softly in the hearth, both of them felt, in their own way, the quiet reassurance that they were no longer alone in facing the world. The next morning, sunlight streamed gently through the windows of the ranch house, filling the room with a soft golden glow. Samuel was already awake, quietly moving about the kitchen, preparing breakfast and thinking about the day ahead. He knew that Elena had been through an incredibly difficult time, and while she seemed a little stronger and more at ease than yesterday, he also knew that there were still things she had not shared. After breakfast, Samuel suggested that they spend some time outside on the ranch.
"Fresh air will do you good," he said kindly. "We can take a walk and you can see the land.
It's peaceful, and it might help you feel a little stronger." Elena hesitated for a moment, glancing toward the open door, then back at Samuel. She had begun to trust him, but leaving the safety of the house still felt risky. Samuel noticed her hesitation and gave a gentle nod. "You don't have to if you're not ready," he said.
"We can stay inside. I just thought it might help to stretch your legs a little."
After a pause, she nodded slowly.
"Okay," she whispered. Samuel offered his hand again, and together they stepped outside into the cool morning air.
The sunlight warmed their faces, and the soft sounds of the ranch, the lowing of the cattle, the rustle of leaves in the wind, created a sense of calm. As they walked, Samuel could see that Elena's steps were tentative. Her body was still weak, and her movements were careful, almost cautious. He slowed his pace to match hers, letting her lead the way through the fields. She asked questions about the ranch, the animals, and how Samuel managed everything by himself. He answered patiently, enjoying the opportunity to share his world with someone who seemed genuinely curious and engaged. After a while, they reached a small clearing near the edge of the property, where the trees grew thick and the sunlight barely reached the ground. Samuel suggested they sit for a moment. He noticed Elena's gaze lingering on the trees and the forest beyond. There was a part of her that was still wary, still remembering the danger and fear she had experienced in the past.
Samuel decided that it was time to address something he had noticed earlier. "Elena," he said gently, "yesterday, when I helped you, I saw some of your injuries. I know it might be hard to talk about, but I need to understand so I can help you properly."
Elena stiffened at his words, her eyes dropping to the ground. She had been trying to avoid thinking about the full extent of what had happened to her, but now, with Samuel's calm and understanding presence, she felt safe enough to begin. Slowly and in small pieces, she told him about the struggles she had faced. She spoke of days without food, nights spent hiding to stay safe, and the exhaustion that came from constantly being on alert. Samuel listened quietly, without interruption, letting her speak at her own pace. He could feel a mixture of sadness and determination rising within him. It was difficult to hear how much pain she had endured, but he also felt a strong resolve to help her recover.
You are safe now, he said softly. No one is going to hurt you here. We'll take care of everything you need.
Elena's eyes flicked up to meet his, and for the first time there was a hint of trust in her gaze. She nodded slowly, still holding onto the blanket that had become a small source of comfort. Samuel could tell that it would take time for her to feel completely at ease. But this was progress. After some silence, Samuel suggested that they go inside to take care of her more thoroughly. He had prepared a warm bath and fresh clothes for her, hoping it would help her feel cleaner and more comfortable. Elena hesitated again, but she allowed him to lead her inside. Once in the bathroom, Samuel gently helped her out of the robe she had been wearing. As he did, he saw more clearly the marks of her difficult journey. Her skin bore faint bruises and scratches, remnants of the hardships she had faced. Samuel felt a wave of sadness and concern. He knew that healing was not only about providing food and shelter, it was about helping her feel safe and cared for, emotionally as well as physically. Elena flinched slightly at first, but Samuel's calm demeanor reassured her. "It's all right," he said softly.
I'm just going to help you feel comfortable. Nothing else.
She nodded, and slowly they continued. Samuel carefully guided her into the warm bath, letting her soak in the water as it relaxed her tense muscles. The warmth and quiet helped her body release some of the tension she had been holding onto for so long. While she soaked, Samuel prepared clean, soft clothes for her to wear afterward. He had chosen fabrics that would be gentle on her skin and make her feel cared for. When it was time, he helped her out of the bath and into the fresh clothing. Elena ran her hands over the soft material, a small smile appearing on her face.
It feels nice, she whispered,
amazed by the simple comfort of clean clothes. Once she was dressed, Samuel led her to the living area and offered her a seat by the fire. He brought a cup of warm tea and a small snack.
You need your strength, he said. Your body has been through a lot.
Elena sipped the tea slowly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest.
It was not just the tea. It was the kindness and care that Samuel was showing. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe and supported. As the day continued, Samuel and Elena spent time talking quietly, sharing stories and getting to know each other. Samuel learned that her life before the hardships had been simple but full of challenges, and he admired her resilience. Elena, in turn, began to feel more comfortable in Samuel's presence. She was slowly letting herself believe that someone could care for her without expecting anything in return. Later that afternoon, Samuel suggested a gentle walk around the property again, this time encouraging her to take small steps on her own. She hesitated but eventually agreed. As they walked, Samuel noticed how her confidence was slowly growing. She began to point out things she liked, the way the sunlight hit the fields, the sound of the wind in the trees, the peacefulness of the animals grazing. These small moments of observation were signs that she was beginning to relax and notice the beauty around her instead of focusing solely on fear and survival. By evening, Elena had started to show signs of real progress. Her movements were steadier, her voice clearer, and her eyes brighter. Samuel could see that she was beginning to regain trust in the world around her. While the road ahead would still be long, this day had been an important step in her recovery. As night fell, Samuel lit a small fire in the hearth and sat beside her. "You've been through so much," he said quietly, "but you're stronger than you know."
Every step you take now is a step toward healing.
Elena nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. She realized that for the first time in months, she could imagine a life without constant fear. Samuel's patience, understanding, and gentle guidance had given her hope. That night, as she slept peacefully for the first time in what felt like forever, Samuel sat quietly by the fire, reflecting on the day. He knew that there were more challenges ahead, but he also knew that together they could face them. He felt a deep sense of purpose, understanding that sometimes helping someone heal could be as meaningful as tending to the land he loved so much. Outside, the stars shone brightly, and the ranch was silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Inside, a sense of calm and safety had settled over the house. For Samuel, the day had reinforced the importance of patience and compassion. For Elena, it had been a small but powerful reminder that kindness existed, even after hardship and fear. And so, as the night deepened, both of them rested with a quiet understanding. The journey of healing had begun, and together they could face whatever came next. The following morning, the ranch was bathed in the soft light of early dawn. Samuel rose before the sun, as he usually did, to check on the animals and make sure the fences were secure. But his mind wasn't entirely on the chores today. He kept thinking about Elena, who was now sitting quietly by the window, sipping tea and watching the golden light stretch across the fields. Samuel could see the small signs of recovery in her, the faint smile on her face, the steadier way she moved, the way she asked questions about the ranch with a new sense of curiosity. But there was also something he couldn't ignore. The quiet weight she carried in her eyes, the unspoken stories that still lingered in her mind. After finishing the morning chores, Samuel approached her gently.
Elena, he said softly, there's something we need to do today. I need to help you completely understand that you're safe here.
And part of that means seeing that nothing from your past can hurt you anymore. Elena looked up, uncertainty and a hint of fear in her eyes.
What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Samuel smiled reassuringly.
It's nothing to be afraid of, but to really help you, I need to see the full story of what happened to you.
That way, I can make sure you get the care and support you need. You're safe here with me, always. For a long moment, Elena hesitated. She had been through so much, and opening up fully about her past was terrifying. But at the same time, she felt the trust she had begun to build with Samuel. Slowly, she nodded, understanding that this was an important step. Samuel guided her to the living room, where he had prepared a comfortable chair and a soft blanket. "Sit down," he said.
Take your time. You don't have to rush.
Elena did as he suggested, folding her hands in her lap and taking a few deep breaths. She began to speak quietly, recounting her journey in her own words. She described the days she had spent wandering alone, the exhaustion and the fear of being discovered by people who had hurt her in the past. She spoke of hunger, cold nights, and the constant struggle to find safety. Samuel listened intently, nodding occasionally to show that he understood and that he believed her. As she spoke, Samuel noticed something that made his heart tighten. There were areas of her story she had been avoiding, moments of pain that she still found too difficult to name. But by slowly recounting the earlier events, she was taking the first steps toward facing those memories, and Samuel knew he had to be there with her, steady and patient. When she finally paused, Samuel spoke gently.
Elena, I need to see the injuries you couldn't show me before. It's important for me to understand completely so I can help you properly. But you don't have to be afraid. I'm right here.
Elena's eyes widened slightly and she hesitated. Her fingers twisted the edges of the blanket nervously. I don't want to show them, she whispered, her voice trembling. I know, Samuel said softly. It's okay to be afraid. But seeing them doesn't mean anyone will hurt you again. It means we can make sure you heal completely.
I promise you're safe here. Slowly and with careful hands, Elena allowed Samuel to help her remove the clothing covering the areas she had been hiding.
As the fabric fell away, Samuel's eyes widened, not in judgment, but in shock and concern. He could see the full extent of her suffering, bruises, scars, and marks from long days of hardship. Her skin told the story that words alone could not convey. Samuel's heart ached at the sight. He felt a mixture of sorrow and determination. It was overwhelming to realize just how much she had endured, but he also knew that this was the turning point. Now that he could see clearly, he could take the next steps to help her heal, both physically and emotionally.
Elena,
he said gently,
I see now everything you've gone through. And I want you to know, you're not alone anymore. I will do everything I can to help you get stronger and feel safe again.
Tears welled up in Elena's eyes. For the first time in months, perhaps years, she allowed herself to cry, not out of fear but out of relief. Relief that someone finally understood, that someone cared deeply about her well-being. Samuel handed her a soft towel and simply sat beside her, letting her lean on him for support. He said nothing more, understanding that sometimes presence mattered more than words. After a while, Elena wiped her eyes and looked at Samuel with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered.
I didn't know anyone would ever care like this.
"You're welcome," Samuel said, smiling gently. "And it's going to be okay. From now on, you'll always have someone looking out for you."
Over the next few hours, Samuel helped Elena with basic care and comfort.
He gently cleaned and dressed her injuries with materials that were soft and soothing. The simple acts of care, providing warmth, tending to her needs, speaking words of encouragement, began to ease the tension she had carried in her body for so long. With each gentle gesture, she felt safer, more secure, and slowly began to regain trust in the world around her. By mid-afternoon, Samuel suggested a walk outside, this time closer to the heart of the ranch.
The fresh air and open space can be healing too, he said, and you might enjoy seeing more of the land. Elena hesitated but eventually agreed, taking Samuel's hand as they stepped outside.
The sunlight was warm, and the soft breeze carried the scent of grass and wild flowers. For the first time, she allowed herself to notice the beauty around her, the peaceful grazing of the cattle, the bright blue sky, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. It felt unfamiliar yet comforting. As they walked, Samuel spoke quietly about the ranch, the animals, and the routines that had filled his days. He shared stories of the land and the work he had done to maintain it. Elena listened, occasionally asking questions, her curiosity growing with each step. She began to relax, letting the fear of the past slip slightly as she focused on the present moment. They returned to the ranch house as the sun began to dip behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold. Inside, Samuel prepared a simple meal and they ate together quietly. The warmth of the fire and the shared meal created a sense of normalcy that Elena hadn't felt in a long time. Later that evening, they sat by the fire reflecting on the day. Samuel spoke gently about the importance of healing not only the body but also the mind and heart. He encouraged Elena to share her thoughts and feelings whenever she felt ready. "Healing takes time," he said softly. "You don't have to rush. Each day, each step you take matters." Elena listened intently, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in months. She realized that with Samuel's guidance and patience, she could begin to trust again. She could imagine a life where she was not defined by fear or pain, where she could find hope and even happiness. As night fell, the two sat quietly by the fire, the warmth and light providing a sense of comfort. Elena felt safe for the first time in a long while, and Samuel felt a deep sense of purpose and responsibility. He knew the road ahead would have challenges, but he was determined to stay by her side, helping her rebuild strength and confidence. By the time the stars appeared in the clear Texas sky, Elena had begun to relax completely. She curled up on a soft chair with a blanket wrapped around her, feeling a quiet sense of safety and reassurance. Samuel watched her with care, silently promising that he would never let her face the world alone again. It was a turning point for both of them. Samuel realized the depth of her struggles and the importance of his role in her healing, and Elena began to see that trust and care were possible after hardship. Together they faced the future with hope, knowing that the path ahead, though long, could be walked safely with kindness, patience, and understanding. The following morning the ranch was calm and quiet. The sun rose slowly over the fields, panting the landscape with warm hues of orange and gold. For the first time in a long while, Ellen awoke, feeling a small sense of hope. She stretched, looking around the room she now called safe, and realized that the fear and uncertainty she had carried for so long were beginning to lift. The warmth and kindness she had received from Samuel had given her a new sense of strength, a belief that life could be different, even better than what she had endured before. Samuel was already awake, tending to the chores that were part of his daily routine. He noticed Elena moving quietly across the room and smiled. "Good morning," he said softly.
How are you feeling today?
Elena paused and took a deep breath.
"I feel better," she admitted. "I think I'm ready to start thinking about what comes next." Samuel nodded, feeling a sense of pride and relief.
That's good to hear. You've come a long way. Remember, healing is a journey. It doesn't happen all at once, but every day you're stronger.
Elena smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes for the first time in months. She knew that she could face whatever came next because she no longer had to do it alone. Samuel's steady presence, his patience, and his quiet encouragement had given her the tools to rebuild her life. Over the next few weeks, their days settled into a gentle rhythm. Samuel continued to help Elena recover physically, but he also encouraged her to engage in small tasks around the ranch, building her confidence and independence. She fed the animals, learned how to care for the garden, and even helped mend fences. Each small success gave her a sense of pride and accomplishment, showing her that she was capable of more than she had believed. But the most important part of her recovery was emotional. Samuel never pressured her to speak before she was ready, but he always made himself available, a steady presence she could rely on. Slowly, Elena began to share more about her hopes, her fears, and even her dreams for the future. She talked about wanting to continue her education, to find a safe place to live on her own one day, and to help others who might be in situations similar to what she had endured. Samuel listened, always encouraging, always supportive. He offered advice only when asked and never judged. In his quiet, steady way, he showed Elena that trust and kindness could exist even after hardship. She began to believe that life could be different, that she could have control over her own future, and that she could be free from the fear and uncertainty that had dominated her life for so long. One afternoon, as they walked through the fields together, Elena paused to look at the horizon. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, dotted with fluffy clouds drifting lazily in the wind. "Samuel," she said quietly, "I think I'm ready to start making my own decisions."
I want to take the next steps for my life. But I don't want to forget what you've done for me.
Samuel smiled, his eyes softening. "You don't have to forget," he said.
What we've shared is important, and helping you has been a privilege. I'm proud of how far you've come, and I know you're capable of anything you set your mind to.
Elena felt a sense of calm determination.
She realized that she had grown stronger, not just physically, but emotionally as well. She had learned to trust, to care for herself, and to believe that she deserved a better life. And Samuel had been there every step of the way, guiding her without forcing her, encouraging her without overwhelming her.
As the weeks turned into months, Elena began to take steps toward independence.
She enrolled in classes in the nearby town, learning new skills that would help her build a future. She found a small apartment where she could live safely, but she always returned to the ranch to visit Samuel. The ranch had become a place of comfort and reflection, a reminder of how far she had come. Samuel, for his part, found that his life had been transformed as well. The ranch, once a quiet place filled only with the routine of work and solitude, had become a home of shared experiences and mutual care. He had learned the profound impact of kindness, patience, and trust. Helping Elena had reminded him that even in a life of solitude, one could make a meaningful difference in another person's life. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, Elena visited Samuel at the ranch. She had finished a day of classes and came to share her progress. She looked healthy, confident, and filled with a quiet strength. Samuel could see the change immediately, the glow of independence, the spark of hope, and the resilience that had grown within her.
I wanted to thank you, Elena said softly, for everything, for giving me a chance, for helping me heal, for teaching me that I could trust again.
I don't think I could have done it without you.
Samuel shook his head gently.
You did all the hard work, he said. I was just here to support you.
You found your strength within yourself. That's the most important thing. They walked together along the edge of the fields, watching the sun dip below the horizon. There was a peaceful silence between them, a shared understanding that the past had shaped them but would not define them.
The ranch, the animals, and the land had witnessed a journey of healing, trust, and growth. Elena eventually returned to her apartment in town, taking the lessons she had learned at the ranch with her.
She continued her education, built new friendships, and started to create a life filled with purpose and hope. She knew that challenges would still come, But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, and the memory of Samuel's guidance gave her courage.
Samuel continued to run the ranch, but his life had been forever changed by Elena's presence. He had learned the value of patience, trust, and compassion in ways he had never imagined.
He knew that sometimes helping another person heal could be as meaningful as tending to the land he loved. The ranch was quieter now without Elena living there full-time, but it remained a place of hope, a symbol of resilience, and a reminder that one act of kindness could transform a life.
Years later, Elena would often return to the ranch to visit. She would walk through the fields, watch the animals, and share her stories and achievements with Samuel. Each visit was a celebration of her journey, a reminder of the courage it took to face the past and build a future. Samuel would listen quietly, always proud, always supportive, always there as a steady presence in her life. And so, the story ends not with fear or despair, but with hope, healing, and the enduring power of trust and kindness. Elena, once lost and afraid, had grown into a strong, independent young woman.
Samuel, once a solitary rancher, had discovered the profound impact of compassion and the joy of helping someone reclaim their life. Together they had shown that even after hardship, life could be filled with hope, growth, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that someone truly cares.